Guys, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending where you're watching the video from and the time you're gonna see this video. I remember my humble self, if you're coming across this video for the first time, I would like you to share the video, like, comment, and follow my page if you are not following me. Breaking news: President Tinubu, who happens to be the president of Nigeria for now, has sworn in 45-man cabinet with their portfolios. As I'm watching this video, I also want you to remember that the government we have in power now, we should not forget this, is government that is not approved constitutionally, because in our constitution, it's not approved for us to have a Muslim ticket as a president. And also remember that we are still waiting for the courts to tell us who is the real president of Nigeria, because even though we that voted, that cast our vote on the set dates, we know who won the election, but we still want to allow the courts to do their work as we wait for them, so that we will know the real president and the real cabinet the Nigerians will be looking up to deliver the country from where the country is right now. As you're watching the video, try to share, you like it, comment, and follow my page if you're not following me. We move.
Transition process, although a work in progress, is finally taking off today with the inauguration of the 45 wise men who have been appointed ministers by President Bola Tinubu to assist him in policy formulation and the implementation of his campaign promises. Tinubu, in company with his deputy, Senator Kashim Shettima, would administer oaths of office and allegiance to the 45 ministers designate, one after the other. The ministers, who as cabinet members are part of the executive arm of the government, are to serve as an advisory body to the president and also in policy formulation. No doubt, the nation is presently in a precarious situation, and Nigerians would be looking up to the new ministers for quick and enduring fixes in the areas of policies, programs and initiatives that would impact positively on the citizens, improve their living conditions, and as well boost the country's gross domestic product, GDP. Also, following a protest from the Niger Delta, President Bola Tinubu has designated Abubakar Momo from Edo State as Minister of Niger Delta. He was initially designated to head the Federal Ministry of Youth. A statement issued on Sunday by the Special Advisor to the President, Ajuri Ngelale, said the Federal Ministry of Youth would be reassigned to a minister designate soon. The ministers designate allocated to the Federal Ministries of Transportation, Interior, Marine and Blue Economy were also reshuffled. Adegboyega Oyetola is redeployed as the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, while Bunmi Tunji-Ojo is redeployed as the Minister of Interior. Honorable Saidu Al-Kali is redeployed as the Honorable Minister of Transportation. Furthermore, both ministers of state in the oil and gas sector are now domiciled in the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources with the following designations. Senator Heineken Lokobiri is the Honorable Minister of State, Oil, Petroleum Resources. Honorable Ekwerikwe Ekpo is the Honorable Minister of State, Gas, Petroleum Resources. The President also approved the renaming of the Federal Ministry of Environment and Ecological Management as the Federal Ministry of Environment. Mr. K, a number of things happening over the weekend, changes here, reshuffling there, new a few appointments here and there. Your take on this story?
Well, the first thing that occurred to me when I saw the story, when I got the press statement from the office of the spokesperson to the President, when I got that, I was like, this is a sign that the government is not prepared for governance. They're not prepared for government. They're not prepared to govern. Because if they are, if the president has spent the whole of his life preparing for this office, there is no way we will have so many mishaps over this issue. I'm not sure. Rufai and Ayo, you might be able to help me. Maybe you have better memories than me. I've never heard anywhere in the world a situation where a cabinet is constituted, cleared, and a portfolio assigned, and all of a sudden, before they were inaugurated, you're already doing reshuffling. I've never heard anywhere in the world that you reshuffle cabinets even before they are inaugurated. It's never been heard of. So this is a first for me. I'm hoping that that some wise people say is that the best thing you can do for yourself, if you find out that you've made a mistake, correct it. Don't hide it. So I guess the president has made quite a few mistakes on this issue, and he is trying to correct it. And we hope that's a good thing, and we hope that he will get it right. The only reason I will keep praying that the president will get it right and this government will get it right is because I want Nigeria to be better. I want the nation to be better. I want it for the sake of my children and our children yet unborn. So our prayers will go, or my prayers, at least let me speak for myself, my prayers will go to the president that God help him so that he can get it right for the sake of all of us and for the sake of the future generation that is yet to be born. But this cabinet reshuffling, even before they're inaugurated, is unheard of. It is weird, it is wacky, it is not something I can really understand. But I hope that this is now settled and we'll see a difference.
All right.
So I'll go to football this morning. I'm a huge football fan, massive Chelsea fan. Chelsea lost yesterday.
You know that.
But there used to be a former coach of Chelsea Football Club called Claudio Ranieri. And I linked the story. Claudio Ranieri was famous and he was known to be the tinker man.
Yeah.
Because Claudio Ranieri will always tinker with the team. So, if in this regard, President Tinubu wants to be the tinker man here, to tinker with his cabinet, I've got no qualms with it, as long as he succeeds. Because despite the fact that Claudio Ranieri tinkered a lot with his team and was called the tinker man, he led Leicester to Premiership victory. He's also voted number 48 in the list of 50's greatest managers. As long as when you do the tinkering, you do it right. I felt with the importance of the Niger Delta question, which has constantly been in the Constitution since the 1960s. In fact, in the 1960 or 63 Constitution, if my memory serves me right, there was a provision to be able to set up a development commission of some sort in the Niger Delta because of the importance. For a region that has been putting most of the foreign exchange in this country since 1956, 57, thereabout when Oloibiri took place, was started. Or for a region that even dials back when oil prospecting started in the early 1912, 1913. That region deserves a ministry. So when I did not see a ministry of Niger Delta, I knew something was amiss. But hey, the tinker man has brought it back. No qualms. Just like the Minister of Youth, which some people, and you see, some people that come and defend all sorts. Very funny stuff. Some people were defending so hard the position and saying, no, youths need an elderly person to look up to, you know, to mentor them and all of that. But hey, I'm sure we've seen the reality of things now. Because we forget in a hurry, if my memory serves me right, it's in this country we had Frank Oweke Jr. become minister at a very young age. It's in this country we had the likes of Chief Okoye, who was Minister of State for the FCT in his 30s, becoming minister. So there's also a place for young people, and no better person to understand the language of the young, like also the young people that take a very formidable part of this country. He's also tinkered with the Ministry of Marine, you know, blue economy and all of that. Mr. Oyetola, former governor. Yes, probably he wants to employ the experience of Mr. Oyetola, what he did, you know, with gold in the States, Aguilala and the likes. Maybe he wants to do that in the marine industry. That's very good. I have no qualms with that. So he could tinker as much. But also something I learned from the life of Claudio Ranieri is that it is also best to make your decision from the get-go. Because there were times too Claudio Ranieri was heavily burnt. His tinkering could have worked to win Leicester the league. But what happened the following season? It's a tale for everybody to understand. So in all of this too, yes, you can be impetuous and go on and tinker from time to time. But there's also a role for being circumspect before you make the decisions in the first place. Because your decision-making process, once people start to fault it, then it becomes problematic. So I am not, I think it's a welcome development. He can tinker with anything. The outcome will be success. As long as he achieves success, tinker on.
All right, so the tinkering man versus the unstable or unstable style, perhaps, as some people might describe. Yes, I do agree that the president has, within his prerogative, is to change or shuffle or reshuffle. But it is quite curious that without them even going ahead to begin begin their jobs, already they are moving around. There are a few questions that this raises. And this is again going to emphasize the conversation around a portfolio assigned before they appear before the House. So does this mean that any of the ministers could take on any role that they're given? Because the assumption is that there's some people whose expertise, whose background are better suited to particular ministries, especially some technical ministries. And so if they haven't even discharged their duties to see how effective or ineffective they are in that ministry, and they're already being moved around, does it mean that there wasn't a clear thought process in assigning them to that ministry? Are there bigger issues? For instance, the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. The new Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy is a subset of or has come out from the Ministry of Transportation. That would usually have come under Ministry of Transportation, which Mr. Oyetola now was occupying. Was there something about the fact that it had lost the meat, the main part of its the ministry, and now for transportation, it's the hard work of road infrastructure, rail that is there that has now moved him to the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy? So these are certain questions. Why the change now? What expertise would he have? Didn't he have to handle transportation to move him to Marine and Blue Economy? Or why wasn't that identified before the announcement was made? Bear in mind, an announcement came many days after inauguration day on the 29th of May. Today is actually 84 days after the inauguration, hence it hasn't been a quick or hitting the ground running when it comes to appointment with the president. So curious cases in that regard. And then should this be, or is this a sign of how government will be going forward? Because bear in mind as well that this administration in only 84 days has made policies, backtracked on some, said we're going to do this, backtracked on some, have seen a few bottlenecks around certain announcements that have been made. Look at the fuel subsidy removal. Till today, no concrete action with regards to distributions. Yes, there have been announcements that have been made, but in terms of it translating to actions that affect or impact lives, they haven't seen that. Anyways, moving away from that, congratulations to the ministers designate. They will hit the ground running, and we're hoping that they will land with their 2 feet. Again, they are aware of the issues plaguing the nation. And so we don't want to hear excuses with regards to, we inherited this amount of problems. Nigerians are eager, in fact, almost impatient for a change. So what we're going to be looking forward to is that the moment inauguration is done today, they sworn their oath of allegiance and all, and they have been handed their portfolio. They meet with their permanent secretaries, as we learn after they've been sworn in, they meet with their permanent secretaries. We expect that by tomorrow, we'll begin to hold you to account. We want to hear your plans. We want to hear what you're going to do differently. We want to see how you're going to work towards achieving this renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu. Now, a few critical success factors that must be born. Number one is that if these ministers will do well, they must have the listening ear of the president. So, in the advisory capacity, they must be given an enabling environment to flourish and to act. Because if they come with bright ideas, we have people like Dr. Bosun Tijani, who has excelled in the tech space in Nigeria, and we're looking at him holding a very critical ministry as well, best fit, perhaps one of the most in terms of when we consider round pegs and round holes. Let him have the enabling environment to flourish, to work, giving the tools to come up with policies that would define that ministry. Same with all the other ministries. We hope the president will listen to advice from his appointees. And then the next, of course, is the style of leadership of the ministers themselves. In the past, we've often seen leadership from a grandiose point of view where ministers come up with sometimes very demeaning statements when they are being questioned or asked. I mean, remember the case of the Minister of Employment who said that if the doctors move away, then there are many other doctors who can fill their spaces. That's not a way. That's not the way for a leader to speak. So one of the things I would also mention is, number one, they're going to be managing multiple stakeholders, the civil servants in their ministry and also the people. So communication is a tool that they must have. So if some might need to go through or undergo communication training, please, by all means, do so. Beyond discharging your duties, you must also be an effective manager, managing people, managing resources, and managing expectations of the people that you're serving. Again, congratulations, all the best, but the work and the work ahead of you is a big task indeed, and Nigerians will be waiting to hold you to account. We move on to our next story. Gearing up for possibilities. As the country continues its transition process, the trio of Atiku Abubakar, Rabiu Kwankwaso, and Peter Obi have begun to discuss the possibility of a merger with the ultimate goal of setting up a formidable party that can more effectively challenge the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. This day has learned. The meeting of these three political leaders, which had been going on for a while, it was gathered, started with the one between Atiku, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and Kwankwaso, the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, at the last presidential election. After the first leg of meetings was adjudged successful, another one between Obi, the presidential candidate of Labour Party, LP, and face of the Obedient Movement, and other critical elements in PDP started to take shape after the two stakeholders agreed to bring him in. The discussions, which were said to still be at the preliminary stages, had been hinged on two pillars. The first, according to insiders, the three leaders have decided to wait and watch the outcome of the election petitions in court, which would determine the second leg of the decision should the court verdict go south. Okay, your take on this?
Well, it's a very, very interesting situation. We're in for a very interesting time and season. Off the top of my head, the people who are called the young people of Nigeria, their position will be, we voted for Peter Obi because we believe that he is different from the rest of them in the pack. That we supported him because we believe that he's going to do something different. And he moved to a party that is called Labour, that some people jokingly or maybe weirdly decided that your labor will be in vain, but their labor will not be in vain. So this is a Labour Party that is designed to be interested in the people, that will work for the people, that will grow the nation as a Labour Party. But where I'm going is simple. This merger is a weird one. It's an unusual one, but if it works well, then it works well. If it doesn't, then the likes of Peter Obi will be one of those that young Nigerians will say he's just like the rest of them, just simply too ambitious and pretending like he's here for the interest of us, the young people. Because the numbers that we have seen voting for him, they are for young people generally. There are some older people who thought that this nation can change with someone like Peter Obi. They too will be disappointed. But at the end of the day, what I will be looking at is if this merger becomes successful, I would expect that someone like Atiku will step down for Peter Obi, someone like Kwankwaso that didn't want to step down at the beginning, that had the chance to have been able to win this election, because if you combine what he got in Kano with what Peter Obi got in the rest of the country, they would have won by a clear margin, and this issue of rerun or any other issue of going to court will probably not even have happened at all. So the expectation is maybe they will have Peter Obi as presidential candidate and Kwankwaso as vice president, and maybe someone like Atiku as chairman of the party or father of the party or leader of the party, whatever they want to call him. If that happens, maybe we'll see a change, but their agenda has got to be for the people of Nigeria. Nothing less, nothing more.
All right.
So I'll take you back memory lane. In 2002, America's Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, was attending a press conference as regards if there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And the journalist asked him that pointed question. And Donald Rumsfeld replied by saying, there are some known knowns and there are some known unknowns. And let me further it by saying there are some unknown unknowns. Concerning this merger, there are some known knowns. What are the first known knowns? The fact that all politicians are the same in Nigeria, and they look for where their interest lies. And when their interest lies, they can coalesce. So it's never a deep feeling on animus between all of them. I'll give you an instance. Prior to this time, Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not ready to do a deal with Buhari. But when he saw that their interests could align, it could be his path to presidency, they coalesced, they did a deal together. And they add some flitterings of PDP into the deal and APGA. They formed the APC. That's a known. So for a deal like this being on the table, it is possible it can happen. It's a known. Because all their interests are coming together. And please, don't be too emotional about politicians. They are all the same. I kid you not. The same Kwankwaso that at first went to meet with Bola Tinubu once the administration started. I'm sure probably because he didn't get a good deal there. So the next thing, he looks for another bidder. Pure and simple. Everybody does it. The same Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, that was at some point very good allies with Muhammadu Buhari, ran against him in 2019. So why do you hold politicians to heart so much? Those are knowns. Known unknown will be, we don't know how this will pan out. And let's not deceive ourselves. Because these same three people, the Chinese have a saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. 20 years ago, which was before the last election, why didn't they come together? Ego played a major role. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar thought he could get it for himself. Peter Obi thought with the obedient movement he could nick it. Kwankwaso thought he could nick it. If you ask these three men who won the election, they will say we did. So why do you deceive yourself too much about politicians? But they couldn't come together. This same Kwankwaso that couldn't make a deal with Obi leading up to the last election, that talks broke down. All of a sudden, they want to coalesce efforts. So we don't know how this will pan out. We don't know who they are going to put forward as president. Would their ego allow them? Would Atiku Abubakar say, oh, you don't know, I might be how many times lucky now on the next stroke, so let me go. Because that was how they made the argument in the PDP, that, he's the only one that has electoral value. Others didn't, Abi. As against the zeitgeist of the nation that was talking about, let power go to the south. We don't know if Kwankwaso will want to say, I'm the king of Kano. I can take Kano. And some other northern states will be able to vote for me. We don't know if Peter Obi will say, me and my obedient movement, we can make change happen. So there are some things we don't know. We don't know how this will pan out. But unknown will be, in all of this, the average Nigerian person does not know where the next meal will come from. The average Nigerian person does not know what future holds for them. The average Nigerian person does not know what will befall his fortunes. The even average Nigerian rich man does not know. Maybe another devaluation will happen to the currency, that he will become poorer than he was yesterday. The average Nigerian company does not know what will happen to their fortunes next. Maybe, rather than thinking of the known about our politician, it's time to start thinking of the unknown. I rest my case.
All right. Well, Rufai, you said that. I just wanted to point out something. You said that out of the three of them, they all thought they won. I don't think Kwankwaso would think that he would. I don't think so. I think, no, he's not even, he didn't even bother going to court. So let's just, let me just say that.
They will reply you.
All right. In terms of a merger, you both said it all, and let me just chip in a few things as well with regards to, at the end of the day, as we have said and emphasized a number of times, don't die in their war. It's interests at the end of the day. When interests align, then politicians then find out that they're able to work together. Recall that just immediately after the announcement, or during the collation actually, before the announcement of the results during the elections, PDP and Labour Party held a joint press conference, and there were already conversations around what has, where is that coming from? And a number of their supporters who were, especially from the obedient movement, had said, no, we don't want anything to do with the old. So why are we having even a joint press conference to address concerns with regards to the process of election, the process of INEC's process in terms of the collation and announcement of results? So there was already an indication that it wasn't off the tables for conversations to still be had. Also, we remember that Mr. Peter Obi was in the PDP before he then moved on to go on to the Labour Party and become the presidential flag bearer of that party. And so we have new ideas, we had a very strong movement with regards to the obedience. But in all of this, whether they are having mergers, conversations, coming together, who is stepping down for who, I hope we don't lose the momentum, especially with regards to the young people who want a change, so that at the end of the day, no matter what emerges from this conversation, the people still recognize that the office of the citizen is the most important and the most powerful office, or should be, let me put it that way, the most powerful office in the land. And so the people should put their interests first and make demands, come to the table. You see how politics works. It's not just about, I'm sticking to my guns, I'm not going to do it. When it comes to it, they will come together and have conversations, and they will agree. If it doesn't align, they will go back again to throwing stones at each other if it doesn't work out. Because as has already been identified, it seemed as if the NNPP was coming to some sort of agreement or arrangement with the APC. In fact, there were talks around perhaps, Mr. Kakonso getting some appointment in this particular administration. So when that didn't happen, he's going to pitch his tent, and hopefully one positive thing we could possibly get out of this, out of the others, is a strong opposition. A strong opposition which Nigeria's democracy has lacked. PDP as an opposition party in the last 8 years, maybe not very strong, because everyone is looking out for themselves. So in terms of holding government to account, in terms of practicing strong opposition in democracy, hasn't really seen the light of day. I'm hoping that there would be a formidable team that would, even if not at this time, get into power. If they do, it would be determined by the courts and the people. But if they don't, they would be able to hold the administration and the government to account, and we'll begin to see things work in our favor. It is very important. The people must have their say at the table. Very critical. In the coming days, we'll see what the merger and the talks, the unknowns, would begin to know. Those, whether it's going to happen or how it will emerge, who would be the frontliner, who would be the flag bearer. But at the end of the day, Project Nigeria is what we're interested in. And we must remember that all the mudslingings, all the violence, whether verbal or actual, on behalf of these stakeholders has to be with sense. It is interests. Nigerians must fight for Nigeria in terms of holding on for Nigeria and not fighting in their